Yeah, it's been really difficult. I mean, let's face it. The challenges that football have faced has been insignificant compared to global economies and the global population. So, I don't think we've got too much to complain about in football. It's been difficult for us, but in the bigger scheme of things, in terms of everybody's lives and jobs and livelihoods, football's really found its way through. Now, one thing I will say, during the whole of this, the Premier League as an organisation have been incredible. The Premier League have shown such leadership in getting this back on and getting the season back on. So at a time when other leagues were curtailing and finishing, the leadership that we've had from the Premier League as an organisation has been incredible. So, yeah, it's been difficult. There's no two ways about that. There's been lots of challenges, but let's face it, realistically, our challenges as a sport really pale into significance when some of the challenges that people are having in their personal and private lives. So football's found its way through, and we're really pleased that the Premier League, it's finished the season with a short break. We're starting again. Yes, it's different, having no fans in the ground and the challenges that we've faced following the health and safety protocols, but it's small price to pay for us to get the season back on, and we've achieved it.
The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
Hola, very warm welcome to the VAR Show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to continue the theme of interviews, and we have the Technical Director of Burnley Football Club, Mr. Mike Rigg, with us. So without wasting much time, I would like to first thank Mike for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to our show. And on that note, I would like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing these days?
Yeah, thank you, Sub. Delighted to be invited. Well, as you know, it's now, what's the actual date? It's the 14th of August, which is bit of a crazy time for us, because now normally we'd be starting the season, but now we're just about to enter back into our early next week we're back into our pre-season training, because obviously all the seasons changed from the pandemic. So we've had a small break. All the players and staff have had a well-earned rest, and now we go back to pre-season next week.
Definitely, and it's quite a sad state that because of the pandemic everything has been disrupted, but I would like to touch on a more lighter topic, that is football in comparison to what's happening all around the world. And I'll talk of your present capacity. You are with Burnley, Technical Director. You have been there for a while now. So, what are the goals and milestones that you and your team have set out that you want to achieve during your tenure?
Well, it's very simple, really. I mean, the business is run on a very self-sufficient basis. So, first off, I would say our role is to stay in the Premier League. I think, like every 20 clubs that set out at the start of the season in the Premier League, your number one is objective is to stay in the Premier League. Burnley's ambitions are to try and make Europe, if we can make that. I would say it's probably unrealistic for us to set an objective at the start of the season to win the Premier League. That's, as you probably know, that's an extremely ambitious and challenging target for everybody, even the biggest clubs in the Premier League. But I think Burnley, under the tenure of Sean Dyche, I think they've set about setting the target of being in the Premier League and achieved that really well.
Definitely, and you said it's quite unrealistic to target the Premier League, but don't you think Leicester City have paved the way of it happening?
Yeah, the fairy tale, which is Leicester City, is incredible. I mean, I was just speaking to a colleague of mine there on the phone, and let's be realistic. It's a once in a lifetime experience. What were they, 5,000 to 1 at the time, and I think well deserved that they were. But I don't think we can see that happening too many times. Now, that's not to say everybody sets out at the start of the season to try and finish the high as we can. So I think Leicester have broke the mould in trying to inspire everybody to achieve these successes. But I think setting a target of winning the Premier League would be a false target, because we're competing against some of the, well, if not the biggest clubs in the world, and Burnley, the size of the club that we are, I think setting an objective at the start of the season to win the Premier League wouldn't be realistic.
Definitely, and you said how you have your tenure and your ideology and what you want to achieve during your tenure, and How much of it has been disrupted because of the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been really difficult. I mean, let's face it. The challenges that football have faced has been insignificant compared to global economies and the global population. So, I don't think we've got too much to complain about in football. It's been difficult for us, but in the bigger scheme of things, in terms of everybody's lives and jobs and livelihoods, football's really found its way through. Now, one thing I will say, during the whole of this, the Premier League as an organisation have been incredible. The Premier League have shown such leadership in getting this back on and getting the season back on. So at a time when other leagues were curtailing and finishing, the leadership that we've had from the Premier League as an organisation has been incredible. So, yeah, it's been difficult. There's no two ways about that. There's been lots of challenges, but let's face it, realistically, our challenges as a sport really pale into significance when some of the challenges that people are having in their personal and private lives. So football's found its way through, and we're really pleased that the Premier League it's finished the season with a short break. We're starting again. Yes, it's different, having no fans in the ground and the challenges that we've faced following the health and safety protocols, but it's small price to pay for us to get the season back on, and we've achieved it.
Definitely. And I'll talk about one aspect of Burnley that has been integral, at least in the past maybe 6-7 seasons, that is for Sean Dyche. And you have previously stated that Sean Dyche has the first and the last say during a transfer, and transfers are something that everyone likes to listen. It's like the favorite hobby. It has become a hobby to listen to rumors and all this, track everything. So was it something that was always there, that Sean Dyche had the first and the last say, or was it something that you implemented when you arrived?
No, I think that's a general rule in football. There's very few clubs where being able to get collective agreements on this. And one of the things which Sean's been brilliant. Sean's probably one of the best people I've ever worked with in football. He's an incredible professional. He's an incredible guy. So it makes it a great pleasure to work with him, because there's an atmosphere of very open and inclusive environments inside the training ground. And that makes it a real pleasure to work in. So one thing that very rarely works in any level of football is when something is imposed on you. So if we were to go out and sign players and not include people along the way, it just makes it very difficult for that to be a success. Sean's got a philosophy and Sean's got a way of working that's been incredibly successful in the Premier League and achieved success over and above anything comparable, probably in my eyes, in world football. So there's a certain philosophy and there's a certain profile of player that we have to bring in a club which is right for Burnley, and Sean set that template. So obviously it makes sense for me to find out first and foremost what Sean wants, the positions, the profile, go out and do all the legwork and come back and then present to him, right, these are our options. And then in partnership with the finance, in partnership with the medical, in partnership with sports science, in partnership with football, if we can make all these bits fit, then it makes absolute sense for the manager to be comfortable with the players that's coming in. There is no sense I can see whatsoever imposing a player on a coach or a manager, unless you've got a manager who doesn't care and just wants to work with any player. Then obviously it makes sense to encourage, to have the manager who gives you the parameters at the start and then makes a decision at the end. So it's basically just a good business decision.
Definitely. Like staying with transfers, Burnley have a very small budget compared to many teams in the Premier League. So how difficult is it to find a player who fits in your transfer budget and is also right for the manager?
Extremely. We again, the model that has been built at this club over the last 8 years under Sean's tenure has proved to be successful year on year. So there is no point to us completely breaking that mold and trying to be, trying to make something fit which doesn't work. So year on year, we have to kind of just keep on making that plan move forward slightly. We've done extremely successful bringing players from lower leagues, from within the championship and the likes, and players that have had the opportunity to reignite their careers. And I think the club is able to punch above its weight because we have a very small organisation where there's not where communication and relationships are very tight, and we've got a very clear profile. So, you'd only have to look at some of the clubs that have gone out and spent an awful lot of money in the Premier League, and spending that money doesn't always guarantee you success. And the group of players that we have here, in terms of their cohesiveness as a group and their friendship as a group, something that's quite often overlooked in terms of recruitment, is second to none. It's probably the best that I've experienced in 35 years in terms of a group of players that are there's a very tight bond. So I think that bond with the players, the kind of personality that comes into the club, I think it's extremely important. So the cohesiveness as a group is as strong as the ability of the player. So that's one of the key things which Sean has set out at the start about the personality of the player has been as important as the quality of the player, and that's proved to be successful year on year.
Definitely. Since you'll rely heavily on proper scouting to get the right player, as you mentioned, on getting to know the player and his background and his nature. So how difficult has this pandemic proved to your working style?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, first off, a very, very simple and straightforward problem is not being able to get. I mean, I'm meant to be over in France tomorrow to go and see a player and do some work. I can't leave the country now because of the pandemic stopping us. I can leave the country, but I'm going to have to sit in the house for 14 days and quarantine after. So since March, we literally haven't been able to get out and do our jobs. So it's encouraging us just to find different ways of working, video analysis and video reporting, which isn't quite the same as being out there live. So these are challenges we're just going to have to face and overcome. There's other obvious challenges that the pandemic's imposed upon us, such as some of the financial restrictions and how the economy and the football economy has taken a hit. So we just have to try and find our way around these now. And some of the simple challenges that we face inside the training ground is the quarantine nature of what we call the bubble. Players, there's only a certain amount of people that are inside the testing bubbles, so people can't come and go and don't have the same kind of freedoms that we had previously. But that's what we're facing as a global on a global challenge, and we've got the same in football.
Definitely. And moving on from that and moving on to your career, and you have previously been the TD4 at Wales. So how different is it, being a TD for a country and being a TD for a club?
Yeah, really straightforward. Obviously, it's the same game, but one group of players you are working with every day, and one group of players you don't belong to you, and you're working with them, once in an international break. Obviously, the difference between being a technical director in a country is you're not recruiting players or you're not signing players. You are just trying to bring the best players that are within your nationality into the group. Whereas my job at Burnley, it doesn't matter where the players come from. We're trying to recruit them from within, or we're trying to recruit them from around the globe. So there's no transfer window in international football, which is quite a godsend at times. But we've got the ability to recruit players from anywhere. So I think the biggest challenge I have is it's the transfer window in club football that you're trying to make that fit. Whereas in international football, you've got a set group of players to recruit from, and you can't go outside that.
Definitely. And moving on from Wales, and you also at the head of acquisitions at Man City, where you were instrumental in many big deals going through. And on a personal level, how challenging is it for you from going free spending to maybe tightening your hands and careful scouting at Burnley?
No, it's a different challenge. It's the same game. It's the same problems. It's the challenges, same challenges. It's just a different group and it's a different budget. So, being at Manchester City's got its huge challenges because there's only a very small pot of players that are capable of going to Manchester City and taking them forward. So you could argue the pot of players that the pool of players that we've got to fish in for Burnley is arguably bigger. I still take the same delight, on trying to find players that are successful to come into Burnley as I did at I did at Manchester City. What are different are some of the financial parameters that you are, it's the financial parameters that you're working within, but it's the same challenges, bringing in good people, good players that have got the ability to take you forward. It's the same game, just a different level of challenges.
Definitely. And staying with City, one thing that they are constantly linked to is the financial fair play. What is your opinion on it?
Yeah, I'm a bit mixed on financial fair play because, I'll make no reference to Manchester City. I'm not going to pass any kind of comment, or nor do I have an opinion on that individual case. I think the whole rationale of financial fair play, I understand, is to try and create a level playing field. And obviously, you've got leagues like the MLS that have a franchise system and a salary cap to try and get some kind of parity. But it's a little bit different in the rest of world football. That there's this competitive nature. And, the flip side to that is if a multi-billionaire wants to come in and invest some of his money inside the sport, what's the difference of investing it in football as opposed to invest it in artwork or any other kind of industry if it's something that person enjoys? So I've got very mixed opinions. I think the intention of financial fair play is right. I think it's to have some degree of accountability and structure. What concerns me with financial fair play is if we don't stick to it, what worries me about the future of the game. And as you can see, across the globe all the time, if you look at the recent challenges that the likes of Wigan are just going through, the challenges that Bury have gone through, and constant stream of clubs that because of the pandemic, League One, there's 70 odd clubs in the Football League that are all now facing real challenges. And we're fortunate in the Premier League because we have the broadcasting. The Premier League have got the wealth of the broadcasters that help us. But when you're relying upon your fans as your major source of income, and when the fans aren't allowed into the ground like we're going through now, people obviously focus on financial fair play more, because it's now we realise that the finances are stretched. And if you haven't got a wealthy owner, or if you've got a wealthy owner which decides to take the club in a different direction, as we're starting to witness now, as I said before with Wigan, it puts the structure and these clubs that have been around for over 150 years, and these fans that turn up week in, week out, rain or shine, it puts the future of a club in jeopardy, and that's something that none of us want to see.
Definitely. And I just wanted to add one more financial question to this interview, and it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and recently there has been the EFL has put a salary cap, I think so. What is your opinion on it?
I don't know the details of it, and I don't think they're calling it a salary cap. I think they want to try and call it something else. But I think I understand the reasons why. I understand the reasons why they want to do it, because it gives everybody a much clearer base and structure within which they work, and I understand it from the players' perspective, and the players' union, the PFA, have come out and raised concerns about it, because obviously they want the players to maximise their income potential as much as they can. But again, I'll just refer back to the model of the MLS and the franchise system that they have, and the salary cap. It just creates a more stable structure for clubs to work within, and I think if clubs can make that work, and it works across all clubs, then I think it's going to be healthy for the game. It will restrict some of the earning potential of some of the players and agents, but I think if the good of the game, if there's a way of finding a healthy solution to this, then don't call it a salary cap. If we can call it some kind of business model which ensures the future of the game is in good hands, then I'm all for it.
Definitely. And moving on from the topic and moving to the academy, Burnley's academy has recently, quite a while back now, been awarded the category A status. How important is academy for the functioning of a club?
Yeah, we've had, it's what's called category 1. So there's 4 categories, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we've just been awarded this year category 1 status, which is an incredible milestone for us as a club. I'm very proud of that, and it gives us a great platform to build on over the next few years. If you think of it this way, the academy is there to do 2 things: produce players into the first team, or produce players that might not be the standard of the first team that we can then sell on. So a lot of clubs don't have the finances to constantly go, dip to the well for the transfer window. So if we can start producing more players like Dwight McNeil, who's now in our first team, who's been an incredible player and an incredible success for us over the last 2 seasons, if we can encourage the quality of player to come to Burnley and the pathway into the first team, to follow the route that Dwight McNeil has made and that pathway, then obviously that becomes a very successful business model for us, which we want to make sure we thrive on. We're not in the market of spending £100 million and £50 million on young players, but if we can produce them players and get them into our first team and move it forward, then that would be a great success for us. And also, don't forget, always across the world, fans have an affinity for homegrown, for one of their own. And I think the more, the more homegrown players we can create and have an affinity to the town and an affinity to the club, the likes of Jay Rodriguez, the likes of Dwight McNeil, I think the more we can produce like that, the better.
Definitely. And I have one more question regarding academy, and this is sent in by one of the listeners. His name is Joel. So he has sent in, in terms of nutrition, how much do category 1 academy spend on food and health per season?
Oh, right, yeah. I wouldn't give you an exact figure because I don't know it, but I would just give you more the. We have a full-time nutritionist whose nickname's Elbow. Elliot, he's a extremely professional. We have full-time chefs, and we have a great canteen facility. It's really important because these guys are full-time athletes. So we make sure that we provide breakfast, we provide supplements throughout the day, we provide the right hydration and the right post-training. And the right advice for all our players, whether they're living at home and giving some kind of nutrition and dietary advice to parents to look after the kids. Remember, or whether it's feeding players on our post-match after a Premier League game when we're travelling back. It's the fuel that we put inside the athletes which are incredibly important. And if we've got young players that at the age of 9, 10 that are going through big growth spurts, then we have to make sure that we support them as best we can. How much we spend on it, I don't know, but it's not cheap. But it's obviously the fuel that goes into our machine. And if you don't get the fuel right, your machine doesn't work properly.
Definitely, and I'll get back to your career from all the academy and all those stuffs. And you have personally worked in various capacities in football, be it TD or head of acquisitions or various others. Which one do you personally enjoy the most?
I've been extremely blessed and fortunate to have some fantastic opportunities. Traveled the world, been to all the continents all over the world with football, North America, South America, Africa. There's a number of experiences that I had were very rewarding and very humbling at times. So first off in my career, I, at the age of 18, started off as a football and the community scheme officer at Chester City Football Club, my hometown. And this was at a time when football clubs had to do something more for the communities to build a relationship, and I was doing that job, and I was working in special schools, I was running coaching courses, and I now look back on that time extremely fondly because it was a great foundation for me. Fast forward many years, I remember going with Manchester City. We had in partnership with the Right to Dream Academy based out in Accra in Ghana, and I remember travelling to Ghana to go and see these young players, incredible people, incredible players, working with the Right to Dream out in Africa and putting something. It was part of a it was part of our project to try and break into the Africa, but also at the same time giving something back. So that was incredible, just having a very humbling experience going there. And then just also having the opportunity to be part of the England group, being part of England when we played in the Brazil World Cup and being part of that group. So I honestly can't think of any. I was there in the stand when Man City won beat Stoke, and we won the FA Cup. It was just having all these opportunities to have these experiences. So I honestly can't put my finger on any one time. I just think there was different experiences I've had from an 18-year-old to more recent. That's I've just found very rewarding.
Definitely, and you of course this next question will be difficult for you because you would have many moments like this. But if you had to choose one moment which you have been the most proudest in your career, which one would that be?
One most proudest in my career. I'm trying to think. Do you know what? You're going to have to give me a bit of time. I'm going to have to think about this. What's one? I would say it's probably one of my earliest experiences. I was the academy manager at Sheffield Wednesday, and we played. I can't even remember the year, but I remember sitting in the Millennium Stadium, and we were in the playoffs, and Sheffield Wednesday won and got promoted into the Championship. I can't remember all the details. I can't remember who we were playing. I think it was a Hartlepool. And I just remember my children were very young, and we were all sat in the stand, and we were going off on holiday the next day, and the club had got promoted. And I think that was one of my first experiences of a little bit of success. And my family were there with me. My children were very young. It's very difficult to give you one specific time. I've been very blessed being at some great clubs and with some great people. So I'm very grateful for all the experiences I've had.
Definitely. And on that note, I'll ask you one final question. This is quite controversial, So if you had to choose one of these two,
answer.
If you have to choose one of these two, whom would you choose? Ronaldo or Messi?
I'm a Messi fan. I'm a Ronaldo fan, but I think I'm more on the Messi side because Ronaldo's an absolute fantastic machine. I just think Lionel Messi gives that's something a little bit different as a pure footballer. So I'm a Messi fan.
So can we see Messi at Burnley anytime soon?
Well, we'll try.
So on that note, Mike, thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best for your future campaign with Burnley, and hope you can take them to Europe again, and hope we can talk again soon. Thank you once again for coming.
Yeah.
Take care, stay safe, bye.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and best wishes and good health to all your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you so much.